Tanya Selangor di kemajuan ke separuh akhir di ASEAN Club Championship Shopee Cup after a Sabtu seri in their final Group A game against BG Pathum United of Thailand earlier tonight. Faisal Halim, what a hero, what an inspiration for the Red Giants as he scored for the second time this season at least 5 successive games. 7 gol dalam 5 perlawan berturut-turut. Yeah. 7 goals in 5 straight games. And it appears that that chemistry that they had, that Faisal had with Selangor head coach Kim Pan-gon has bonded once again strongly as they survive card merah by Alvin Fortes to hang on to the sub-2 point that was sufficient enough for them to reach the semi-finals in their first ever appearance of the ASEAN Club Championship this season. And that draw was enough for Selangor to finish second in Group A to advance into the semi-finals of the competition. And what a spirited performance the Red Giants had displayed at the Stadium Majelis Petaling Jaya tonight. It was a game where they had to deliver a result, they had to hang on, it was within their control, and as you say, the rest was history. And before Kim Pan-gon took over the former Malaysian Kingpins, Selangor was hanging on the precipice of elimination from the competition. But ever since the former Malaysia coach took over from caretaker Christophe Gamel at the start of this year, he has now guided them in tujuh game, where they actually 7 games, where has guided them to 6 wins. I think you can say 6 wins and 1 draw, or 5 wins and 1 draw in all competitions. 6 games, 5 wins and 1 draw in all competitions. Still an unbeaten record, and in the process surviving the very tough back-to-back ASEAN Club Championship final 2 group games, both at home. They passed it with flying colours, and that was despite having to endure surviving waves of yellow and black shirt onslaughts for much of the game. It is not as though Selangor didn't create chances of their own. They did. They knew that they had to play a disciplined game. They knew that they had to carve out a result. And carve out a result, Kim had managed to bring the best out of the Red Giants in just over a month ever since he took charge. And that was the result. That was the score that Selangor needed to revive what had otherwise been a rather, by their standards, a sorry state, a poor season, where they once again are set to finish second fiddle to Johor Darul Takzim, and with fierce competition for second spot coming in strong from Kuching City dan Kuala Lumpur City. The Red Giants needed strong leadership after a disappointing start to the season under Kazuhito Kinoshi, who ironically is now linked to Singaporean side BG Tampines Rovers, who are eliminated from this same competition that I'm talking about after they lost 1-6 to last season's runners-up Kongang Hanoi in the corresponding Group A fixture. Now, speaking about the game itself, I won't go into details and bore you all on what really happened because we all saw the game, but I think there are a few points I'll need to emphasize. Sub 2, Faisal, when he brings his game on, he is unstoppable. As I mentioned at the start, 7 goals in 5 successive games. 7. How who he's really unplayable at this moment. And that is despite Selangor having to endure more than an hour with 10 men after Fortes was adjudged to have stamped on a BG Patom's defender's knee in the challenge for the ball in the final third. A harsh red card, to be honest. It's a very harsh red card. It wasn't like Fortes was out to injure or mime or break that defender's leg. He wanted to go for a ball. It was poorly judged. It could have been a yellow card, but still, that red card, I'll talk about it a bit later. Still, the main focus on Faisal Halim. When Faisal is on song, everybody dances to the same tune, and that was what he did after the red card setback by the home side. And the Merah Kuning had to rely on that combo, one of the most deadly combinations in the Malaysian Super League this season, Chirigor and Faisal Halim. They now have developed quite a telepathic relationship up front. They in partnership. They know what each other is doing, despite Faisal usually playing on the left side and Chirigor as the lone forward. But they knew what each other was going to move. They knew how to reach each other's moves. They could anticipate what the other guy was going to react, how to anticipate the pass and move. And it was Chirigor's ball to Faisal that saw him find the space, sufficient space for him to get past two BG Patom defenders before lashing it into the top corner of the box to give 10-man Selangor the lead. That is the kind of telepathy that you need even with the numerical disadvantage. And sometimes making the chance that counts was sufficient for them to just deliver the result they needed to continue their involvement in the ASEAN Club Championship. Now, secondly, I will now talk about the red card. Very harsh, to be honest. Very, very harsh. Because Alvin Fortes was really not out to break that person's knee. He was unfortunate that his starts left a mark on that poor defender who was trying to clear the ball or shield the ball away from him or block the ball in that 50-50 challenge. And it could have been a yellow card. Card merah. No, card kuning, sorry. But card merah, red card, too harsh. But the defender had already made his decision, and his decision is final. So, very unfortunate for Alvin Fortes, where his expulsion robs Selangor of the extra pace that would have been vital on the other flank. So, leaving Selangor to play with 4-4-1 for the remainder of the game. Very harsh, and to be honest, I think Selangor should try to appeal for that red card. Now, the third one, Richmond Ankara, that unfortunate own goal. To be honest, it was an unfortunate move. I think he intended to clear but somehow managed to send it towards his own nets. I think this was one of the reasons why Kim Pan-gon had been rather hesitant to start Ankara, because of that slight vulnerability that he has compared to the Jordanian defender Abau Nadi, who was actually deployed at left back, and with Safwan Baharudin ineligible because he had already been involved with the Lion City Sailors while out on loan earlier in the competition, so he was not involved tonight. So that left options thin. Sharul Nazim still probably out injured, and with Harif Haikal on the bench. So Kim was probably thinking that you had two strong, powerful centre backs to provide an intimidating physical presence for the BG Patom players who needed a win for them to have a slim hope of progressing into the next stage of the competition. But credit where credit is due. In spite of that unfortunate own goal, you could see that that level of intensity, competition, that focus, that organization, that was somewhat missing during, or that was seldom seen, rather seldom. I mean, the closest we can talk about how Selangor drew 1-1 with BG Batu United will be reminiscent on how Selangor kicked off their ASEAN Club Championship campaign last year. I mean, at the group stage, at the start of the group stage last year, when the heroics of Kalamula Al Hafiz in particular and Harif Haikal was enough for Selangor to hang on for a 1-1 draw at the Thunder Castle. But that was the first game of Group A. Now, in the final game of the group stage, Selangor once again needed the heroics of Kalamula Al Hafiz, who delivered three big saves for the Red Giants to send them through. Because as solid as Faisal was, as much of the impressive work was down to the work and the coaching that the former Malaysian national coach Kim has set up ever since he arrived at the start of the year, and also the slight tweaks that he made. He didn't make major overhaul changes from what Gamel had previously done. There was no return to back three, but it was a clear 4-2-3-1 or hybrid 4-3-3 that Kim had continued, but with a few tweaks, especially with the link up in play and the freedom to express themselves in that final third. So, and especially after Fortes was sent off, you can see how compact Selangor defended. I think that compactness was something the Selangor fans who were in attendance and even those who were watching on TV, they would probably have wished that Selangor would have done the same for whether it was under Gamel, who, to his credit, did his best and threw in more younger players during that interim period, or previously under Kinoshi, who was pretty insistent on that 5-3-2 or 5-4-1 wingback formation that had its impact but also had its vulnerabilities. And with that result needed, Selangor delivered. You can say that Kim has already done impressively in his honeymoon period for Selangor ever since he took charge on the 5th of January 2026, beginning with a 5-2 win over DPMM in Brunei Darussalam on the 5th of January, and ever since then has built on from there as Selangor now advanced into the semi-finals of the ASEAN Club Championship, but also the quarter-finals of the Piala Malaysia. So much of the credit has to be given where it's due. And advancing into the semi-finals of the ASEAN Club Championship has reignited Selangor's campaign after a faltering start in the second half of 2025. And this is definitely the kind of campaign that Selangor fans can build on. And despite whatever the ultra cells think about the ASEAN Club Championship and having boycotted all their home games, even though they have been in the news for the wrong reasons, a very rare blip in Selangor's brief moment under Kim Pan-gon so far, but the ultra cells has nothing to do with that. But still, the players delivered when it really mattered. The ultra cells should rethink twice whether, I mean, yes, to the ultra cells, they probably think that this is secondary to the ACL2, which they crave more, which is understandable, but it's still a competition for Selangor to do well, and they have already achieved where they failed in Asia in that all ASEAN group to advance into the last four of the competition. And this is something where Selangor can build their momentum on to continue their unbeaten run, especially in their next game over the weekend when they face Negeri Sembilan in the first leg of the quarterfinals, and possibly build another cup run from there. And while trying to hang on to second place in the Liga Super Malaysia, where runaway leaders Johor Darul Takzim are set to be crowned champions for I think the 12th successive season in a row. but still, that battle for second spot is still not secure. But having a good result, especially with 10 men against PG Patong, a Thai side with with solid reputation, with a good profile in Southeast Asia, this is a signal that Selangor can compete with the better teams in Southeast Asia, and their progress into the semi-finals was a result of good intuitive play from Faisal Halim and Chirigo, the discipline that the Selangor players, whoever came on, they did to try to hang on, and obviously with the superb heroics of Kalamula or Hafiz, 3 big saves and a few blocks, critical blocks, to keep the yellow and black shirts very frustrated at the final whistle. Iksan was running riot but could do nothing further than despite his attempts at goal. This was overall a collective team effort in keeping the Thai visitors at bay. And once again, Tanya to Selangor for reaching the last for the ASEAN Club Championship. And it would be very fun if somehow, depending on what happens in Group B, when Namdin has already qualified, but JDT could join them if they either draw or defeat. If they defeat Namdin, then Johor and Selangor will meet in the ASEAN Club Championship 10 akhir or semi-final. If JDT draw with Namdin, JDT are likely to face Buriram United in the rematch of the Giants, while Selangor will face the Vietnamese side Namdin in the other semi-final. So whatever it is, it's going to be quite a heck of a ride under Kim Pan-gon. Unbeaten so far, Faisal on fire, very hard to stop. I mean, he's unplayable at this moment, Faisal Halim. Kalamula has rediscovered his solid form in goal, and all the players, and especially those who have played under Kim previously, they have responded solidly behind him, with the results showing for it, with the performances to match for it, and with that impact that Kim has made ever since the South Korean took charge. Now, Selangor are back for the rest of this season as serious contenders for the ASEAN Cup Championship and possibly Piala Malaysia. And who knows, maybe they might even hang on to finish second in the Liga Super Malaysia.